Aariz Al-Nashit and Meera Kalyan were worlds apart. One a secretive Dubai millionaire, the other an innocent Indian girl. But a forced marriage would ignite a chain of betrayal, hidden crimes, and a revenge no one saw coming. Aariz Al-Nashit was a name spoken with respect in Dubai's elite circles. His wealth came from old investments, silent partnerships, and a reputation carefully built over years. To the outside world, he was a reserved millionaire known for discipline and tradition. Inside his family, however, there was rising fear. Aariz had crossed an unspoken line, and rumors about his private life were beginning to circulate among powerful people. For a family that valued honor above truth, reputation mattered more than consequences. They believed the only way to end the whispers was to arrange a marriage that looked pure and unquestionable. Thousands of kilometers away, in a modest Indian town, lived Meera Kalyan. She was raised in a household where elders made decisions and obedience was seen as virtue. Meera had recently finished her studies and dreamed of a simple future built on trust and stability. When the proposal arrived from Dubai, her family saw it as an unexpected blessing. A rich, respected sheikh wanted their daughter as his wife. The offer came with urgency, wrapped in promises of security and a better life. Questions were discouraged, and doubts were brushed aside as unnecessary fear. Meera was never told why the marriage had to happen so quickly. She was not told that she had been chosen because she was unknown, quiet, and unlikely to challenge authority. Preparations moved faster than her thoughts. Before she could fully understand what was happening, her life was packed into suitcases. As the plane lifted toward Dubai, Meera believed she was stepping into fate, unaware that the decision had already sealed her silence and placed her inside a story she would not recognize until it was too late. The wedding took place inside a grand Dubai venue filled with light, gold, and controlled perfection. Everything was designed to impress, yet nothing felt personal. Meera moved through the ceremony like a guest in her own life, guided by instructions she barely understood. Faces smiled at her, cameras flashed, and blessings were exchanged, but no warmth followed her once the celebration ended. That night, she was taken to a vast mansion that looked more like a guarded estate than a home. From the first morning, Meera sensed the imbalance. Her room was beautiful but distant, placed far from the center of the house. Staff entered only with permission, and every movement followed a schedule she did not create. Aariz remained polite yet absent, offering no guidance, no reassurance, and no interest in her thoughts. Days passed with long silences and unanswered questions. Meera waited for married life to begin, but it never truly did. Rules appeared quietly. Certain areas were restricted. Phone calls were monitored. Visits outside the mansion required approval. Meera noticed how staff avoided eye contact, as if acknowledging her presence was risky. The luxury around her felt cold, designed to distract rather than comfort. Slowly, she realized she was not there to be loved or even known. She was there to be seen. At night, Meera replayed the wedding in her mind, searching for meaning. She wondered how a union celebrated so loudly could feel so empty. The title of wife gave her no authority, no safety, and no voice. What unsettled her most was the feeling that her role had already been completed. The marriage had served its purpose, and she was now part of the background. In that quiet realization, the first crack formed between her hope and reality, marking the beginning of her awareness that something far darker surrounded her new life. Life inside the mansion settled into a pattern that felt carefully designed to limit her presence. Each day followed the same routine, measured and controlled, leaving no space for choice. Meera began to notice that her freedom was not taken by force, but by structure. Doors were always open, yet certain paths were silently blocked. Smiles from staff never reached their eyes, and conversations ended the moment she entered a room. Aariz remained distant, appearing only when necessary. He spoke little, never explaining the rules that governed the house. Meera observed that his absence was not neglect but intention. He did not want connection, only compliance. This distance pushed her into isolation, where time moved slowly and thoughts grew louder. She started paying attention to details she had once ignored. Security patterns, shift changes, and moments when cameras were adjusted became familiar to her. One afternoon, Meera wandered into a corridor she had never seen before. Before she could take more than a few steps, a guard redirected her without explanation. That quiet refusal confirmed her growing suspicion. The house was not just a residence. It was a controlled space with secrets layered behind locked doors. She realized she was living inside a system built to protect something valuable and dangerous. Loneliness turned into observation. Meera stopped expecting kindness and started studying her surroundings. She memorized routes, listened for subtle signals, and noted how certain staff members avoided specific rooms entirely. Fear still existed, but it no longer controlled her. In its place grew a cautious awareness. She understood that ignorance had been her role before, but now knowledge mattered more than comfort. The mansion was hiding a truth, and she was standing uninvited at its edge, slowly becoming aware that her presence there was not accidental, but necessary to someone else's protection. The discovery happened by chance, hidden inside a moment of carelessness. A private tablet had been left unattended in a shared study, its screen still glowing with unread files. Meera had never been curious about numbers before, but something pulled her closer. The documents were not written in plain language. They were coded through transfers, dates, and unfamiliar company names that repeated across different countries. As she scrolled, patterns began to form. Large sums moved quickly, disappearing and reappearing under new labels. Some transfers ended abruptly, as if their purpose had expired. Meera noticed news links stored alongside the files. They refer to accidents, business failures, and unexplained deaths that had occurred shortly after major transactions. The timing was too precise to be coincidence. A chill settled in her chest as she understood that the wealth surrounding her was tied to silence bought at a deadly price. Aari's fortune was not only protected by power, but by removal of obstacles. She copied what she could, sending fragments to a hidden cloud account she created under a false name. Each saved file felt like a step closer to danger, yet turning away felt worse. For the first time, Meera understood why her life was so restricted. She was not being protected. She was being contained. The realization changed her completely. The marriage was never about companionship or tradition. It was a calculated move to create a public image strong enough to shield crimes buried beneath layers of respectability. Meera was chosen because she had nothing that could threaten that image. Or so they believed. As she locked the tablet and returned it to its place, Meera knew her innocence was gone. In its place was awareness, sharp and irreversible. She had crossed an invisible line. From that moment on, every quiet hallway and watched doorway felt heavier, because she now carried a truth that could either free her or destroy her entirely. Meera understood that staying any longer without a plan would only tighten the invisible chains around her. She waited, observed, and calculated every move with patience she did not know she possessed. When an opportunity appeared in the form of a scheduled medical appointment, she recognized it as her first real opening. The visit required leaving the mansion, passing through security, and entering public space. For days, she prepared quietly, memorizing routes and rehearsing timing in her mind. On the morning of the appointment, everything felt different. The city outside the gates looked alive and unfamiliar, filled with noise and motion she had almost forgotten. For a brief moment, hope outweighed fear. Meera attempted to break away near the clinic entrance, blending into a crowd she believed would protect her. The plan failed within minutes. Security moved quickly and without chaos, surrounding her before she reached open ground. She was returned to the mansion in silence. No confrontation followed, no anger, no explanation. That absence of reaction unsettled her more than punishment would have. By evening, changes had already begun. Her room was relocated to a more isolated wing. Additional cameras appeared in hallways that once felt neutral. Access to devices was reduced further, and even staff interactions became limited. Meera realized she had underestimated the system controlling her life. It was not designed to react emotionally, but to prevent disruption. Her failed escape had not been a mistake in their eyes, only a correction needed in their structure. That night, fear returned, heavier than before. But beneath it, something else formed. Meera learned that force would never free her. Only precision and patience could. The first attempt had failed, but it had revealed the boundaries. And boundaries, once seen, could eventually be broken. The disappearance was reported as calmly as everything else in the house had always been handled. One morning, Meera's room was found empty, her belongings neatly arranged, her bed untouched. There were no signs of struggle, no hurried packing, no message left behind. Security footage showed nothing unusual. Every camera angle followed its routine, recording only normal movement. The system that once tracked her now confirmed her absence without explanation. ROIs informed authorities that Meera had chosen to return to India on her own. He described her as overwhelmed by cultural adjustment and unwilling to continue the marriage. The explanation fit easily into official paperwork. With no complaint filed and no evidence of wrongdoing, the case closed quietly. In public records, Meera Kalyan became a footnote rather than a mystery. What no one knew was that the disappearance had been planned over months. Meera had memorized staff rotations, identified the few minutes when surveillance overlapped imperfectly, and studied how records were altered without question. She left behind the illusion of normalcy while removing herself from it completely. Even her digital presence faded as accounts were abandoned and devices erased. Beyond the mansion walls, Meera ceased to exist under her old name. She moved through safe routes designed for people who needed to vanish, guided by knowledge rather than trust. Each step away from Dubai felt unreal, like walking out a locked room without making a sound. The world accepted the story it was given. A wealthy marriage that failed quietly was not worth attention. But disappearance did not mean defeat. It meant repositioning. While our eyes continued his life, believing the problem had removed itself, Meera entered a new phase, one built on invisibility. She was no longer trapped inside the system. She was outside it, watching, waiting, and preparing for the moment when absence would become power. 6 months after Meera vanished, information began appearing in places it should not have reached. Investigative journalists across different countries received identical data packages from an anonymous source. The files contained financial records, transaction timelines, and ownership links connecting RI's companies to offshore networks long suspected of laundering money. What made the leaks impossible to ignore was their precision. Each document was paired with dates that matched public tragedies once dismissed as unrelated events. As reporters followed the trail, patterns emerged. Businesses collapsed shortly after refusing cooperation. Accidents occurred near key negotiations. Payments surged just before silence followed. Authorities who had once lacked proof now found connections laid out clearly, without emotion or exaggeration. The leaks did not accuse. They exposed. ROIs dismissed the reports publicly, calling them fabricated attacks by rivals. Privately, his world began to shrink. Bank accounts were frozen, pending review. Longtime partners severed ties without explanation. Travel restrictions appeared quietly, tightening around him like a closing net. The reputation his family had worked so hard to protect now attracted exactly the attention they feared. Investigators soon noticed something unusual. The access points used to gather the data traced back not to corporate offices or external breaches, but to a private household network. The implication was unsettling. Someone close had seen everything. As international pressure grew, our eyes searched for the source, convinced the threat came from power equal to his own. He never considered the possibility that the most dangerous witness was someone he believed erased. The leaks continued at carefully timed intervals, each one deeper than the last. What began as whispers turned into coordinated scrutiny. Meera remained invisible, her role unknown, but her presence felt everywhere. the silence forced upon. The pressure reached its peak when authorities issued an international alert tied to ROI's financial network. Airports became checkpoints rather than exits. As ROIs attempted to leave the region using a private route arranged through trusted contacts, officials intercepted him before departure. There was no dramatic scene, only formal restraint and sealed documents presented without delay. The confidence that once shielded him disappeared the moment the evidence was placed in front of him. Investigators moved quickly, reopening cases that had been buried for years. The leaked files aligned perfectly with newly accessed bank records and witness statements from former associates seeking protection. What had once been rumor was now structure. Each connection reinforced the next, leaving little room for denial. Legal teams struggled as the scale of the operation became public knowledge. The most shocking detail emerged during internal review. The original data access had occurred from inside RI's own residence. Logs showed repeated entries over months, all during periods when he believed control was absolute. The narrative shifted dramatically. The threat had not come from competitors or enemies, but from within the life he had engineered for protection. Public reaction was swift. Media coverage reframed the story from financial scandal to personal betrayal. The image of a powerful figure undone by his own system captured global attention. Yet one figure remained missing from every headline. Meera's name did not appear in official statements. Her absence puzzled investigators, but protection protocols kept her identity sealed. While ROIs faced interrogation and detention, Meera remained beyond reach, her involvement known only to a few. The forced marriage meant to erase risk had instead placed truth directly inside his walls. Control had given her access, and access had ended everything. As the case advanced toward trial, one reality became undeniable. RIs, far from the headlines and courtrooms, Meera lived under a name that carried no history. She resided in a quiet European city where anonymity blended easily into daily life. Official records listed her as a private consultant, a role vague enough to invite no curiosity. Her movements were limited by choice, not force. The freedom felt unfamiliar at first, like a language she had to relearn. Protection came with conditions. She avoided public exposure, declined all interview requests, and severed contact with her past. Even her family was told she was safe but unreachable. The cost of survival was disappearance from every life she once knew. At night, memories returned uninvited, but they no longer controlled her. What remained was clarity. Meera followed the trial from a distance, reading transcripts stripped of emotion. Each confirmed detail reminded her that the truth had done what anger never could. She did not feel victory. She felt release. The power that once hovered over her life had been reduced to documents and dates, stripped of fear. The marriage that had taken everything from her had also given her sight. Access had replaced innocence with understanding, and understanding had become her weapon. Meera never sought revenge through destruction. She chose exposure, letting facts dismantle the illusion that once trapped her. As the case moved towards sentencing, Meera began rebuilding quietly. She studied, worked, and planned a future without titles or control. Her strength came from restraint, not confrontation. In remaining invisible, she kept her power intact. The world would never know her full role, and that was intentional. Survival had taught her that the loudest justice often fades, but quiet consequences endure. Meera did not reclaim her old identity. She created a new one, shaped not by fear, but by the knowledge that silence, when chosen, could be stronger than any voice. Aariz Al-Nashit's trial ended with sentences that reverberated far beyond the courtroom. Years of hidden transactions, offshore accounts, and unreported deaths were laid bare for the world to see. His family name, once untouchable in Dubai's elite circles, collapsed under the weight of evidence. Business partners severed ties, former friends kept distance, and the empire built over decades began to fracture. The powerful image he had so carefully cultivated was shattered, piece by piece, by facts that could no longer be ignored. Meanwhile, Meera remained unseen, living a life untouched by public scrutiny. She never returned to India, never sought recognition, and refused to appear in media accounts of the case. Her revenge had not been violent, and it had not required confrontation. It was strategic, precise, and irreversible. By exposing the truth, she had undone the man who had forced her into silence, proving that knowledge could wield a power far stronger than wealth or influence. The mansion that had once confined her remained empty of her presence, a symbol of control stripped away. Our eyes had believed the forced marriage made her powerless. Instead, it had given her access to everything he sought to hide. The system designed to contain her became the instrument of his downfall. Meera's life after the trial was quiet, almost ordinary, yet it carried an invisible weight of authority. The forced marriage had been intended to erase her, but had taught her patience, observation, and the importance of truth. What had begun as fear had transformed into mastery over her own fate. In the end, the story concluded not with bloodshed or vengeance in the traditional sense, but with consequence. Control, arrogance, and silence had created their own undoing. And the woman who had once been trapped became the architect of justice, proving that sometimes the strongest power is the one that is never seen.